My Big Fat American Gypsy Wedding attracted millions of viewers when it premiered in April 2012 on the TLC network, as it gave a look into the world of American gypsies. Many viewers were surprised, even shocked, at the extravagant weddings and family dramas that took place. Much of what was revealed about their lives and cultural traditions seemed extreme or exaggerated, but truth, as they say, is stranger than fiction, and that's what makes reality television such a hit, including this series. The US series actually followed the British documentary series Big Fat Gypsy Weddings, which became one of the most watched shows on Channel 4 in the UK, with an average of over 9 million people tuning in after it premiered in 2010. Its producers, Firecracker Films, then created an American spin-off for TLC. It was said that about 1 million gypsies established several communities throughout the country, but very little was known about them by the general public. The London-based executive producer, David Herman, said that the American version had been the most extensive pre-production and production period he had been involved with. Meeting people and gaining access to their world had been difficult, as they were a secretive lot, wary of those not part of their community. It was the popular dressmaker, Sandra Celli, who made things possible by earning the trust of the gypsies in sharing part of their lives, their family celebration, but mostly weddings. My Big Fat American Gypsy Weddings quickly captured the attention of the viewing public, as gypsy culture was found to be quite unique, with teen marriages, over-the-top dresses, wild parties, larger-than-life characters, and so much family drama. The show had a 5-season run, with its final episode aired on the 4th of September 2016. Due to its popularity, a spin-off series called Gypsy Sisters had been launched in 2013, featuring the Stanley sisters, who were the breakout stars of the original series, making a spectacle of themselves for being wild, loud, aggressive, and for flying off the handle at the slightest thing. They developed a cult following, as viewers found them quite entertaining to watch. However, as with almost all reality TV series, the way the Romani Americans and Irish travelers were depicted in My Big Fat American Gypsy Weddings was said to be at least partly unreal, even misleading, and that the show was designed for cheap laughs and to shock its viewers. Most of the criticism came from those within their community, such as Oksana Marafiotti, author of American Gypsy, a memoir. She was beyond excited when she first heard that TLC was planning the American version of Big Fat Gypsy Weddings. Not that she was a fan of it, but she saw this as a chance to change the perception that most people had about gypsies, in that we all live in trailers and marry off our teen daughters, that Romani women prefer cleaning baseboards to getting an education, that our men drink more than they work. After she contacted its producers with a view to becoming involved in it, as they talked about where the show was headed, she came to the sad realization that they were more interested in producing something that was entertaining, old-fashioned gypsy weddings, celebrations, and such. It's one thing to present a willing group of people in a negative light, but quite another to represent an entire race of people as a niche stereotype, she said. One aspect that bugged some viewers was how teen daughters were dressed provocatively, bordering on slutty as described by some, but they were expected to remain virgins until they were married to a suitable gypsy bachelor. People shouldn't get the wrong idea about how gypsy girls were dressed. Although they were meant to capture a boy's interest, it wasn't an indication that they could kiss, talk, or flirt with them. 17-year-old virgin bride Cheyenne said, Romani girls aren't supposed to know anything about sex until after they're married. Her soon-to-be groom, 18-year-old Michael, revealed his thoughts on girls who engaged in premarital sex, saying, I want something new. I don't want something used. One gypsy girl was even homeschooled, as she saw kids making out in middle school, and her family didn't want her exposed to that kind of behavior. Some, if not most of the parents in the show, dressed their young girls in clothes that were considered a bit risque on occasion, and it became controversial, as it appeared that the parents were over-sexualizing their children. However, they argued that these girls were just having fun, and that those who think otherwise were the ones who were sexualizing them. Suffice to say that the image of the gypsies who appeared on the show was contradictory to the strict moral code they supposedly adhered to. The authenticity of the TV series was questioned, as it was rumored that the participants were directed to say something or act a certain way to fit the narrative that the producers or writers wanted. Most viewers of reality shows have come to accept that some storylines are exaggerated or scenes are edited in such a way to create tension or drama. However, in My Big Fat American Gypsy Wedding, some said that the weddings were totally fake or scripted. Priscilla Kelly was featured in Season 1's 14 and Looking for Mr. Right episode in 2012 and was depicted as someone fully trained to become a proper gypsy wife. She wore an expensive Sandra Celli creation, a Queen of Hearts dress with over 50 yards of ruffles and thousands of Swarovski crystals for a Halloween party that her family threw her in hopes of finding her a gypsy husband. Before that, she and her father went to a party and talked about the way the gorger, non-gypsy guests were dancing. Her father said that in bringing gorgers to the community, you're going to get that filth and that smut, while she said that gypsy girls might dance with their hips and they might show skin and cleavage, but you won't see anything if we bend over, and you won't see us all over the boys, unless you're a dirty girl. In 2014, Priscilla shared on her Facebook page what some viewers were suspecting, that it was scripted. She wrote, "Basically, producers told me if I would just get married, it didn't matter who it was. It didn't have to be legal, just so they had something to put on TV. That she was trying to find a husband or was being married off at the age of 14 was a lie. Furthermore, she claimed that they were not paid to be on the show and that all they gained from it was nothing but disrespect from the people who didn't understand their way of life." Priscilla had since become an American professional wrestler with the ring name Giga Dolan, signed with World Wrestling Entertainment, WWE. Her nickname was Hell's Favorite Harlot, as she developed a goth succubus character that licked and bit at her opponents to psych them out. In 2018, she married Samuel Ratch, also known as Darby Allin, former longest-reigning All Elite Wrestling TNT champion, but they announced their divorce in 2020. One of the major attractions of the series was the wedding dresses or party gowns. Those who contracted the services of Sandra Celli mostly wanted something big, elaborate, and blinged out. She had creative freedom in design, keeping in mind what her clients wanted, no matter how outrageous or ridiculous it might have seemed. There were a couple of dresses in particular that caught the attention of the viewers. Michaela's floral dress, entirely made of fresh flowers, was definitely Instagram-worthy. However, Sandra had to rebuild it in 24 hours, as the flowers had wilted while in transport. Then, Tatiana's wedding dress made history in the show, as it was the biggest, blingiest dress ever, made of 1,200 feet of fabric, 500 feet of tubing, and 50,000 hand-sewn crystals. It weighed 110 pounds, or 50 kilograms. It was so big and heavy that she had to ride a flatbed semi-truck to the wedding venue. The dress was priced at $40,000, so many said that stereotyping gypsies as hard up and living in trailers was wrong, as it seemed that most of them could afford pricey gowns, not to mention lavish parties. So who were some of the most interesting couples in the series? Alyssa and Heath had been living with Heath's family, but his mother Nettie threw them out of her home after she heard that Alyssa had been talking behind her back about how many men Nettie had in her life. Nettie's sister Mellie hated Alyssa and had planned to hit her in the face on her wedding day. Heath asked her not to do anything to ruin his wedding, so Mellie controlled her anger, at least until the ceremony was over, when a violent catfight ensued, with the bride's maid of honor confronting Mellie right outside the courthouse, and the two ended down on the ground. There was hair pulling, and punches were thrown before they could be separated. The marriage, by the way, lasted only a month. Annie and Josh had the same grandfather, but Annie said, if you love somebody, you cannot help the way you feel. She didn't mind that there were people who think they were disgusting because of their family relationship. Josh said, it didn't matter to her, it didn't matter to me, I can't help the fact that I love her. They just clicked, and there was never a dull moment when they were together. Most people frown upon marriages between first or second cousins, but in gypsy culture, it's quite normal and acceptable. What their families found upsetting was that the two were already living together before they tied the knot. They called it living in sin. There was a commotion at the wedding of Amber and Dustin, as her ex-husband Jamie showed up uninvited. Amber told him to leave, and that should have been the end of it, but someone approached Dustin saying that she had no intention of ruining anything for him, but then proceeded to tell him that Amber had cheated on him with Jamie since the start of their relationship. He confronted his wife and didn't believe her when she denied it. He then smashed their wedding cake in her face and walked away, saying he was done with her. All this happened mere hours after the couple said their I do's. Pookie openly flirted with another girl at a party with Nucky present, but didn't make a scene. It was especially hard for her as she'd left home to be with him. He was my first kiss, my first everything, and it just hurts, she said. Being faithful was hard for him. His sister wasn't surprised, saying that they were simply too young, as she was 14 and he 16. Nuki returned to her family, and that was supposed to be the end of their love story. But they tied the knot 2 years later and had 3 kids. However, they then went their separate ways, and she married another guy in 2020. Mason realized 2 weeks into his marriage with Melissa that he preferred her younger sister, Karen, instead. He believed the latter when she said that his wife was seeing other men behind his back. He didn't like that Melissa was never home, and it was not how a proper Romanical wife should behave, and said she was just dirty in every way. After 2 years and their divorce, it was revealed that Mason was marrying Karen, whom he said was the love of his life, his angel. Later on, he was sentenced to 1 year imprisonment after he pleaded guilty to grand theft, as he scammed an 82-year-old woman in Ohio, but he only began serving his sentence in 2019, as he was in jail on a previous charge. With all the controversy surrounding the show, and the American Gypsies generally being portrayed in a negative light, many chose to steer clear of the limelight after the series ended. Not much was known about the couples who stayed strong and stood the test of time, except for a few. 2 sisters, Kayla and Candace, had a double wedding, but only Kayla remained married. Nettie and JR are still together after they renewed their wedding vows in 2014. As most of the couples featured were young, their relationships reportedly ended in divorce, as they weren't ready for a lifelong commitment. Some said that it was the reality of life, while others wondered if there was some truth to the rumor that the so-called wedding ceremonies weren't real at all, and that they weren't legally binding, as they were just doing it for the show. Thus, they were hush-hush about it. However, loyal fans believed in the show, and were still rooting for the couples. Make up your own mind. Thank you for spending some time with us. Make sure to like and subscribe so you never miss another video. We also handpick these videos which we recommend you watch next. You can talk to us on all social medias or ask a question in the comments below. Thank you for being with us, and we'll see you back tomorrow.